Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Today's episode is brought to you by Your Clear Next Step in the Changemaker Certification Program.
Would you like to save time by solving the right problem sooner with a realistic and measurable plan? Reduce overwhelm by finding more sustainably productive ways to work? Improve employee morale by creating more positive workdays from within? Stay competitive by tightening your turn or increasing your agility in adapting to changing customer demands? You'll get 8 full-day virtual sessions over 10 months, plus 6 hours of one-on-one coaching, 8 hours of intentional networking, and 8 hours of personal reflection. The growth that we've seen is absolutely unparalleled.
Interested in becoming a changemaker? Give us a call at 515-442-0545.
Hello, friends, and welcome to this edition of the Even Better podcast. My name is Sinikka Waugh, and I am so delighted to have you join us today. This is one of those solo podcasts where you get a chance to just hear my thoughts on a couple of topics. And today we're talking about self-care. And you might wonder to yourself, why on earth is Sinikka talking about self-care? I mean, really, is this out of her lane? And I hope you'll indulge me for just a minute. I hope you'll spend these few minutes and just to really dig into this topic, because I think it does help us have better work days. And as we explore this definition a little bit, and as we think about where we're going with this topic, I hope you'll open up your mind to this idea, and I hope you'll spend a little bit of time with this to make our work days even better so that together we can co-create better communities. You see, self-care isn't indulgence. And I spent too much of my career, too much of my life really believing that self-care was it was that thing that you went off, you carved off too much time for yourself. You went and had a spa day, or you selfishly did things that were to the exclusion of other people. And I shouldn't even say you, but one did. And that was my impression. That was my false impression of self-care. And I rejected the premise for kind of a long time. And I didn't do things that were self-care. I wrinkled up my nose at them. I would approach the whole idea of self-care as, ooh, I am a closet, if it was really hidden that well. I was a closet workaholic. I don't have time for self-care. I work too hard. I grind. I do the things. I show up all the work hours that are available to me and then some. And even as I was starting my business, and certainly through those first 5 years, holy smokes, I am a grinder. I work all the time. I don't have time for self-care. That's indulgent. And then a very wise soul helped me understand some really great truths about self-care. And it's not indulgence. And so I invite us to stop and think. I invite us to pause for a moment and redefine, because words matter and our understandings of these things matter. Let's get to the core of this. Self-care is not indulgence. Self-care is not putting others aside or casting others aside or disregarding our responsibilities and being careless or forgetful or neglectful of our responsibilities. Self-care is not forgetting what we need to do. Self-care is adulting, I think, is the way I've heard it put most beautifully. But self-care is taking care of ourselves. Self-care is being the grown-up. Self-care is caring for yourself and taking care of who you are so that you can show up well and healthy and strong and capable for others. Self-care is, in fact, a requirement. It's not optional. It's not extra. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. And it took me far too long to understand that, my friends. And so I love if there's anyone listening out here who hasn't bought into this yet, I'm going to invite you to just keep hanging with me for a second and let's spend some time on this. I remember a dear friend of mine a couple of years back, she was sharing an anecdote and she's super younger than I am and she's come into her wisdom so much sooner than I did. And she said, as I was a kid, I thought the grown-up drink was coffee. And then I got a little bit more grown up and I thought the grown-up drink was alcohol. And she says, now I'm over 21 and I realize that the grown-up drink is water. And as she shared this story, she's surrounded by a bunch of older women. I mean, most of us at this time were in our 40s or older, and we're looking at her and we're just shocked at her wisdom. She's in her early 20s at this point, and we're just shocked and awed at her wisdom and her insight. And we're all going, man, wish we had known that. Wish we had had that kind of wisdom and insight when we were your age. Yes, this is what we're talking about. This is the kind of self-care that we're talking about. It's not about getting to a point where you're old enough to drink a caffeinated beverage so you can have that caffeine boost to get you going. It's not about getting to be old enough where you can drink alcohol to be socially lubricated or whatever that word is, to be loose and fun and hang out with your friends. No, it's about being smart enough and wise enough to care for yourself and hydrate properly. That's the grown-up drink. That's the grown-up drink is water. Water. She gets it. She understands it. So, okay, let's dial this back now to the workplace. The workplace. And how do we make better work days with self-care? Well, self-care means, on balance, getting enough sleep. What was that joke years ago? I remember having an all-nighter, pulling an all-nighter in middle school, or staying up all night in middle school with my friends because I was going to catch up on the weekend. That was a myth. I'm still waiting to catch up on my sleep. No, self-care is about getting enough sleep on balance. That's 7 to 8 or 9 hours, whatever kind of person you are, what the hours of sleep that you need on a regular, consistent night's sleep. It's about getting enough sleep so that when you wake up in the morning, your brain is doing what it's supposed to do, and your ability to converse with other humans, to interact with other humans, to do the work that you're supposed to do in a workday, you're refreshed and ready to do it. It's about getting enough exercise. I know. Oh, Sinikka, stay in your lane. No, seriously, it's about getting enough exercise. It's about moving your body physically so that when you are doing the work that you need to do, your body isn't aching at you and growling at you and stiff and aging before it's time. Those sit to stand desks, we've got 5 of them here in the office, the sit stand desks. We sit and stand all the time. My desk chair, it's a yoga ball, for heaven's sakes, so that I can at least move and use my core at least a little bit, even when I have to do seated work. It's standing up when you need to stand up. As a facilitator, when I train, I'm on my feet most of the day, and I invite us to stand when we need to stand. I move us around in the classroom all the time because sitting and absorbing information, I use this line as a trainer, the human brain can only absorb what the rear end can endure, right? We can't sit. We weren't designed to sit. We weren't designed to sit. We were designed to be standing and moving. So stand up when you need to stand up. Move when you need to move. Get your brain doing other things. Look away from your screen when you need to look away from your screen. Even our virtual trainings, I know you've seen us advertise 8 hours of virtual training. I assure you, we do not stare at our screens for 8 hours. We have a 10-minute window every 50 minutes where we invite people to turn off their cameras, turn off their screens, and go do other things. Go talk to a fellow Earth person. Stop staring at your screens. Look away. Go find a window. Go outside. Get fresh air. Hydrate when you need to hydrate. Most of us are walking around underhydrated, and it makes it so that our bodies don't work, our brains don't work. We are not doing things effectively. If we're not caring for our bodies, then our brains don't work, and our ability to interact with other people is compromised. We're not going to have a good workday because we're not firing on all cylinders. If we don't care for ourselves, we will not have the ability to care for the work that's been put in front of us We will not have the ability to care for the people who've been put in front of us or next to us. We have to care for ourselves. That analogy, and we use it in change management as well, that analogy when you get on an airplane and they tell you that in case of in case of crisis, in case of an emergency, oxygen will drop from the ceiling and you secure your own mask before helping someone else. That's good practice. You have to take care of you before you can take care of someone else. A couple of years ago, there was on social media, there was a meme that was circling that said, you can be replaced by corporate in a few hours. Don't bleed your life away for corporate. And whether you're working for a corporate organization or a small entity, I think the premise stays the same. We are replaceable in our workplaces. That's true. If the work is still have to be done. So if something happens to you and you go away, you win the lottery and go away, or you decide to leave that particular place of employment and you find a new place, they will replace you. And so you don't have to bleed to death for your organization. In fact, nobody really wants that. Ultimately, the people, the humans who are accountable for your organization don't want you to bleed to death for your organization, despite how it may appear in some cases. Because if you bleed to death for your organization, you're not there anymore. You're gone. And much better to be a healthy, well-balanced you, who can show up as your best authentic self and have a great day. Show up with a smile, show up refreshed, show up. And when you drive to work, you're safe because you've had a good night's sleep and your eyes are wide open. You're not in a fog driving to work unsafe on the roads because you're barely conscious as you're driving. And show up and engaging with other humans and remembering the conversations that you have, because you're not having them half asleep, and you're not in a chemical induced conversation, caffeinated to the hilt, but you're in a naturally inspired conversation because the work itself inspires you. It lifts you up and you are refreshed and hydrated and properly nutrition balanced, ready to go. This is what self-care looks like. So the other piece of it is about balancing, so not just your physical well-being, but there's also your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, your relationships, and the things. We are people outside of work. I have gone through a year this year that I hope to not go through another one like this. This has been brutal. This has been tough. There have been things outside of work that have made this so very challenging. And I am so grateful to know that in the organization that I'm in, that I'm surrounded by people who love me anyway and who support me through it. And there were moments that I could simply say, I need this time. And I needed time to go be with my mom in her last days. And that was self-care. It was not, it would have been counterproductive to my business to show up and try and pretend to be focused on work when where my heart was where my feet needed to be, which was by my mom's side. Self-care is being where you need to be at the right moment. And when we are in healthy, productive organizations, we respect that and we honor that about one another. We balance family and we balance personal needs, and we honor that we are not robots going through the motions. We can also get automation to work where automation works. And holy smokes, that's some great stuff. Let's get the machines to do what the machines can do. Let's get automation to do everything that automation can do so that we can bring the people to do what we need the people to do. And then let's honor the humanity in us all and care for one another when our humanity needs us to care for one another. I saw another post recently about I think it must have been a parent saying, let's drive a $5,000 car and not miss any of my kids' games or activities instead of driving an $80,000 car and missing most of the games. Yeah, that's self-care too, right? That's caring for the kids that we've brought into this world. That's caring for our family or our nieces and nephews when we want to go support them and their flag football and all the things that they do, or support our siblings when they bring new life into this world. Yes, yes, absolutely, yes. Or support those that we love most when they're going through the hardest times that they can imagine. Yes, and absolutely yes. Self-care is being able to honor the emotions that we have and the personal needs that we have when we also need to care for those around us. And we can't do that if we can't speak up when we need to speak up. And if we can't say, hey, I have a personal need right now that I need to go honor. That's self-care too. That's honoring our priorities. So let's keep bringing this back into emotional intelligence. And you hear me talk about emotional intelligence all of the time. It begins with self-awareness and it moves to self-management. Self-awareness in self-care is aware of who you are and what you need. So it is aware of those physical needs. How much sleep do you need in a night? What are the amounts of hydration that you need? For most of us, it's about 64 ounces on baseline. It's a minimum of 64 ounces a day. How do you need to get those 64 ounces of water a day? And are you one of the people who needs more because you get more activity? Do you need a lot more, or do you need a little more than those 64 ounces? And how do you need to pace yourself to make sure you get all that in? And how do you need to pace your bathroom breaks so that works too? Self-aware. How much sleep, how much exercise, how much water, how much do you need to take care of your physical self? And then self-aware of your emotions, self-aware of how they show up, self-aware of your priorities. What matters to you in your physical health, in your emotional health, in your spiritual health, in your social health? Where are your priorities and how do you keep them? How do you keep them and care for them? How have you prioritized those? That's self-awareness. And then self-manage. Do you know you have to do something about that? Manage those priorities. You have to set alarms. I was with my 19-year-old the other day and we were chatting in the evening and her phone dinged, and it was a different alarm than I usually hear. It wasn't the notification of someone chiming in or for a text or a Snapchat. It wasn't one of the regular notifications that I heard. And I said, oh, what's that alarm? Sophie, what's that sound? And she said, oh, that's my bedtime alarm. It's time for me to go. I need to go get ready for bed. Yes, this is self-managed. It's a beautiful example of self-manage. It was time. It's time for me to wrap up this conversation and go get ready for bed. It's beautiful. Self-manage. So what are the things that you're doing to manage to your priorities, either in your physical wellness or to carve off time to make sure you're connecting with those relationships that are important to you, or carve off time for your spiritual wellness, for worship or for faith or for meditation or for prayer? What are you doing to self-manage to make sure that you are holding to the priorities that matter to you? Because if we don't manage to that, it'll get away from us. And that's self-care too. It's adulting. It's putting those schedules there. It's being that grown up. It's caring for yourself so that you can be there for others. It's putting those hard stops in and saying, nope, I've got a hard stop at the end of this day so that I can be there for those that I've prioritized as important for me. It's saying, nope, I don't do other things on Sunday mornings because I've carved that off for worship. It's saying, nope, I don't work on weekends anymore because I've done this for my family. It's saying, nope, I don't do things on Thursday nights because that's friend time. What are your priorities and how do you manage that? That self-awareness and that self-management, that is part of self-care. And that makes it so that then you don't wind up resenting other things and allowing things to build up. It makes it so that then you can create the parameters in which you create your flexible work schedule and which you have healthy conversations with those around you. This is, in fact, how we create great work days. So I invite you to spend just a little bit of time right now, just a little bit of time as this year wraps up. How did you do? How did you do on your self-care this past year? How did you do in that whole picture? And then how do you want to do even better next year? How can you do even better? Self-care, my friends, is not indulgence. It is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It's adulting for ourselves. It begins, of course, with the basic physical needs that we have, and then it extends to all of the other things that we need: our emotional wellness, our spiritual wellness, our um, our mental wellness, our relationship wellness, our financial wellness, the things that we need that make us well, healthy, balanced humans, so that then we're aware of our priorities and we manage to those priorities. Let's make sure we do what we need to do. How are you caring for yourself? If you would like to engage with me on this, I would love to hear your success stories. I'd love to engage with you on your challenges and maybe problem solve with you. Join me in social media. This would be a fun conversation. If you've got any ideas, if you've got tips for others, this would be a fun one to chat about. Join in this. We always post about these podcasts on social media. Comment, like, share this one. Let's get the conversation going. And on behalf of all of us at Your Clear Next Step, thank you so much for listening. And I hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.